Alright, 8. Post-weld heat treatment. Generally, unless otherwise specified, the qualifying welding heat treatment is achieved with the post-weld heat. Per the post-weld thermal stress relief, the heat treatment shall be performed according to the table 6 for the 644 of this section. Special requirement is similar metal joints when the parts of the two different S-numbered groups that are joined with the weld and the post-weld of the heat treatment. The temperature shall be selected for the base for the preserving the medical and overall the more critical of the two of the material of the application concerned. Post-weld of the heat treatment for the different thickness of the plate and pressure vessel of the welded joint connect for the parts of the pressure vessel that are a different thickness for the thickness to be used applying. The requirements for the post-weld heat treatment shall be as follows. The thinner of the two adjacent butt welds include the heat to shell connection, thicker of shell head plate with the connection of the intermediate heads, thickness of shell connection of the two tube sheets, flat heads, and covered in similar construction, thickness of the shell of the head plate with the nozzle attachment welds, thickness of the nozzle check with the neck at the joint with the nozzle next to the flange connection, thickness for the pressure part with the point of the attachment where a non-pressure part is welded with the pressure part. 83 ferrous material. The post-weld with heat treatment of ferrous metals will then conform to the table 6. Non-ferrous materials post-weld with heat treatment of the non-ferrous materials shall be in conform to 641 through 646. Post-weld heat treatment performance of the furnace at the load temperature for the furnace temperature for the bushel length is 800 degrees Fahrenheit at the time of the weld is placed, and at rate of heating above 800 degrees shall not more than 400 degrees per hour divided with the maximum metal thickness of the component of the vessel in the inches, but on now in case more than 400 degrees Fahrenheit per hour. 857. 853 temperature variation during heating and cooling cycle. During the heating and cooling period of the portion of the weldment being heated shall not vary with more than 250 degrees between the highest and lowest reading. 854 holding temperature variation. Holding temperature shall be considered the mean between the highest and lowest temperature. Thermocouple reading with the thermocouple reading shall be within temperature range specified with the materials involved with the table 6 for the ferrous materials and nickel alloy 641. Other alloys improved during the holding time of the specified stressing relief with the temperature maximum temperature differences between any 2 points of the weldment should not exceed 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Prevention oxidation distortion during the heating of the holding the period with the force of atmosphere that is controlled with the minimized surface the oxidation flame should not impinge directly on the weldment and support shall be provided if required to minimize sagging due to its weight with the effect of the high of the temperature rated with the furnace cooling. Some of the materials quenched from the post-weld heat treatment the temperature of the cooling above the 800 degrees Fahrenheit should be done and close the furnace cooling chamber at rate no greater than 250 degrees per hour. 800 degrees vessels with components that can be cooled in still air and provided and protected from the inclement condition of the drafts. See Figure 8.7. The special consideration heating and cooling rate. The rate of the cooling not to be less than 100 degrees Fahrenheit per hour. However, the consideration clove of the chamber, the complex of the structures may indicate the need to reduce the loading and temperature of the rate of the heating and the cooling to avoid structural damage due to the excessive thermal gradients. 85858. Post-weld heat treatment titanium alloys shall be performed in accordance with the mill H81200. Additional requirements of 88. Post-weld heat treatment procedure local heat making method. Post-weld heating should be accomplished with electrical induction, electrical resistant devices, other approved local heating methods. Heating rate, holding temperature for the variation. Cooling rate, with the heating rate with the localized heating shall not exceed 40 degrees Fahrenheit per 5-minute period. Holding temperature variation rating of the cooling should accord with the 854 and 856 respectively. 863 post-welding, post-heating pipe weld with the width of the circumferential band with the heated shall be at least equal to 3 times the wall thickness, not in no case less than 1.5 times the width of the welded face on each side of the joint where the pipe weld is made. The valve, the width of the heated zone may be decreased on the valve side. The minimum distance measured with the edge of the wall with equal to the width of the welded face. Alright, post-welding pressure vessel with the circumferential weld of the joint with meat with the treated uniformly here. Circumferential band having the minimum width of the 6 times the material thickness of each of the side of the joint. Nozzles or other welded attachments which post-weld heat treatment require that may be treated locally with a heating circumferential band around the entire vessel with a connection at the center of the band. The band width is the minimum of the 6 times the material with the thickness of each of the attachment. Local post-treatment for the application are listed above will not be permitted without approval by the contracting after the detailed procedure. 8 of the post-heating repair weld of the pressure vessel with the piping. Unless otherwise approved with the vessel part of the vessel with the piping that have been heat with the treated within accordance with section 8 shall be again with the post-weld heat treatment after the repair of the alterations have been made. 8.8 heat treatment of titanium and titanium alloys protects the inert gas atmosphere vacuum molten salt with when needed to protect the surface of the oxidizing reducing reaction with the contamination chain with its carbon content embrittlement undesirable elements of the surface of hydrogen oxide nitrogen referred to the mill H2181200. Gases with the protective atmosphere should be limited to argon helium meeting requirement of 32.1 882, when parts of the heated treatment, the vacuum furnace shall be purged and backfilled twice before heating the argon helium meeting requirements of 32.1. Furnace may also be backfilled during the cooling of the argon and helium. 883, when salt bath, the heating of the treatment of the salt mixture shall be consistently mostly non-chloride oxidizing salt, which chloride limited to 2,000 parts per million maximum. Reducing a nitridizing salt that should not be used. Temperature of the measuring method. Pyrometric equipment. Pyrometric reading equipment shall be provided that indicate the temperature of the weld, not of the furnace, shall be specified in 894. Average of the observed temperature of the weldment is considered to be the temperature of the weldment, provided all observed the temperature so within the temperature range specified in Table 6. Locating thermocouples. Thermocouples should maneuver the temperature of the anticipated hot at this point of the weldment, of the anticipated coolest point, with the number of thermocouples provided shall ensure the complete coverage of the weldment. Adequate temperature of the history of the more than one weldment is to be shuttled received. Relieve it at the same time. Thermocouples should be detached for each for the weldment. In no case, however, there shall more than 6 thermocouples as required for the furnace charge. For local heating operation, not less than 2 thermocouples should be detached for this weldment. Only 2 thermocouples are used. They should be separated by the distance equal to 3 widths of the width of the reel and reinforcement of the weld centered between them for the flange and pipe joint. That one of the thermocouples should be detached for the flange side of the joint. Installing thermocouples. Thermocouple wires should be electrically insulated except with the hot junction in order to avoid erroneous reading of the thermocouple should be arranged so the flames do not impinge of the junction of the wire themselves with electrical resistance heating method is used. Thermocouple to provide the control of the operation should be covered with a protective wrapping to prevent direct radiation of the heating of the elements for the hot junction. The thermocouple should be attached to the weldment by method which ensure that the thermal junction is held firmly. 894 pyrometric control furnace. For the furnace stress relief, the weldment record pyrometric control furnace has been calibrated. It's verified the temperature variation within the furnace is within stress relieving the temperature range of the materials involved with the furnace control. Thermocouplers may be the indication of the temperature of the part being treated in lieu of the thermocouplers attached to the component. Chapter 9 Design Requirements for Welded Joints.